Hi, my name is Tyler Frieders. I work for the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, and today I'm going to show you how to take a few blank samples. When we're taking blank samples, we're going to be taking all A, B, C, and chlorophyll A bottles for blank samples. It's going to be deionized water that we put these samples in, but we're going to go through the same process of taking the samples as you would a regular composite sample. So the same triple rinse method. You're going to add sulfuric acid to your B bottle, and you're also going to not triple rinse your C or E. coli bottle before you do it. Before these bottles go flying, lay them down. We're going to get started. Using DO water, we're going to rinse the bottles out 3 times. Once we get to the shoulders of our A bottle, we're going to cap it. Make sure our label's on there. Make sure we write blank across the label, and make sure we check the box blank on our data sheet as well. Then we're going to take our A sample, put it in the cooler, ready for the courier. Make sure your cooler's full of ice as well. Moving on to the B bottle. Again, we're triple rinsing. And just like your other B bottles, we're putting sulfuric acid into it. Here's our sulfuric acid. We're going to remove the cap of that. We're going to transfer 2 milliliters of sulfuric acid into our B bottle. Be sure not to touch the edges of your sulfuric acid bottle or your B bottle with your pipette. Be sure to discard your pipette properly once you're finished. Cap both of them. Like to invert the B bottle a few times. Make sure we get that sample preserved. We're going to put it in the cooler with a bunch of ice, ready for the courier to take out. Now we're going to move on to C bottle, or excuse me, chlorophyll A bottle. Tap it, make sure we got it labeled, make sure our data sheet's labeled blank, and we're going to stick it in the cooler with all of our other samples. The last sample we're going to take is our C or E. coli sample. Unlike the other ones, we don't need to triple rinse this one, it's already got preservative in it. So we're going to just take our sample, cap it, make sure we got a label on it, make sure it's marked blank, and it's stuck in the cooler with all our other samples ready for the courier to take to the health lab. And that's it. Okay, now we're going to make a couple labels for replicate and blank samples. As you can see here, this is a chlorophyll A sample, and it's marked composite. Some labels will have a blank and replicate box on the label. So right below it here, we're gonna actually make let's call it a blank sample. Same kind of deal, we're gonna initial that. And that's going to be our blank label for whether, if it's got a box, it's really easy, you just need to check it. But sometimes that labels they don't have that box to mark replicate or blank. So what we do for those is we just go up to the top and we write across it blank or replicate. Now that's the only difference between the labeling between your composite samples and your blank and replicate samples. And that's it. Okay, we're quickly going to show you how to do a data sheet up at the truck. The big things here, you're going to be signing your name, time, and date. A lot of the times the rest will be filled out, but if you don't, you're going to need your agency code, your source water, your site location, project, and project ID over here. The big thing here is what you're marking for your samples. Composite, if it's a composite sample, a grab if it's a grab, or your blank and replicate samples over here. So if I was sending in a bunch of composite samples, we're gonna make sure this one's marked. If I was gonna send in, say, a bunch of composite samples and replicate samples, we're gonna mark, say, replicate on the next data sheet instead of composite. But other than that, another good thing to note is down here, usually they're going to have what the health lab's going to be testing for prior to you labeling it yourself. But if not, make sure in your A bottle, B bottle, and C bottle you have checked off what we need the health lab to be testing for. Other than that, I suppose a big thing to remember is make sure that these data sheets get into that gallon Ziploc bag on the bottom of your cooler lid, and make sure it's sealed up and waterproof for the trip. And one last thing to note, if you have any more questions or need any more direction on what you're doing with blank samples, you can find it on page 8 of your field guide. With that being said, have fun and stay safe out there.